So Denzel Ward talked about keeping the DB trio together. He also talked about the new Cleveland Browns stadium plans and what he hopes to see when Jimmy Haslam unveils the final reconstruction of whatever is going to happen. And do we have a quote for that too, or do you want me just to paraphrase what he said?
No, we've got the quote if you want to read it here, Mike. It says, I'm a Cleveland guy, so I appreciate all the history that's going into the stadium and where we're currently playing. He did also go on to say that if it does move, he's open to it moving, but he'd like it to stay downtown.
So Deshaun Watson a couple weeks ago on his podcast said he prefers a dome. And we had the discussion of should players have any say in the future plans for the stadium, yes or no, and we talked about that from Deshaun's standpoint. From a Cleveland guy like Denzel saying he thinks it should stay downtown, Tyvis, I guess we're bringing up the question again. Do players and should players have any say in what the Browns do with their new stadium?
I think it depends on the player, but a billionaire is going to do what a billionaire wants to do at the end of the day because they're the ones that's cutting the check. I think Denzel said this for the simple fact that he is a Cleveland guy, and he understands that, playing downtown means a lot, because you're in Cleveland. That's just what you've known. A lot of people fear change. When you change something, when you move things from where they were, a lot of people just don't like that because they're so comfortable with their routine, their certain game day routine. Maybe it won't be the same because it won't be downtown. Maybe it's something special that Denzel does every game before the game that's downtown. So I think that has a lot to do with it. And him being from Cleveland, like I said, you want it to stay in Cleveland. Heck, I want it to stay in Cleveland. In the perfect world, I want them to build the dome downtown, but that's just not what the case is. And if you're asking any player, again, if they rather play in great weather conditions where under a dome or in elements of rain, snow, and all that, 98% of the time they're going to tell you, I'd rather play in the dome, so that's not a factor on my mind. I don't understand why this is such a big debate. Just go with the dome. You've played in domes. You've been successful in domes. Only thing I request is a natural grass field. That's it. No turf. Please, no turf.
Jason, you're a stadium guy.
That'll be tricky to pull off, natural grass in a dome. They do it in Arizona because it's Arizona, and they can wheel it out, and the weather's nice. And I don't know. That might be something else I have to look into because I agree in terms of the injuries on turf. It's bad with knees and everything else. It was funny. I was at the Guardians game. I was working at Progressive Field, and I walked by a couple of the workers, and they called me over like, "You gotta stop with this dome talk about moving it out of the city. We gotta keep this team in the city. Keep that stadium. I want that stadium in the city." And they were rattling off a couple of different sites where they thought a stadium might be able to go. I'm like, guys. It's Jimmy. He wants 176 acres. It's the land around. It's not just the stadium land. It's the land all around, and what they can do with it all is what's so appealing to him. And you're right, billionaires are going to do. I mean, did you see the ESPN story where basically Robert Kraft got retired Bill Belichick and called the Falcons and said, nope.
Yeah.
And now we'll
that's messed up, man.
That was cool.
That's so messed up.
I mean, that's billionaires live in a different world, man, and they do their own thing. But to the earlier question, no player should have any say in terms of stadium site. Stadiums are going to be around minimum 30 years, if not 40
the players
50
going to be there for...
Players going to be here 6-7 years, 8 years, 10 tops. If you have a franchise quarterback, in the best of circumstances, maybe 10 to 15.
Even Tom Brady didn't last 20 years in New England.
Yeah, I mean, so... There are probably very specific special circumstances like a Brady. I mean, we're talking 3 or 4 in the history of the game who maybe should have some sort of say in it. But by and large, Mahomes. He's got a long way to go in Kansas City still, and he could be the greatest ever to play by the time he's done. If you want to consult with him or whatever, go fine. But these are very, very few and far between cases of guys who should have any sort of say at all in what goes on, whether it's dome, open air, location, anything like that. Cavs did build a practice facility outside LeBron's house.
Well, you mentioned the rare instances. That's
one of them. That's the only. They can say whatever they want. They put that thing in Independence because it was close to LeBron's house. It was right down 77, right up 77. And now they're moving it downtown.
So we've heard Denzel talk about it. We've heard Deshaun talk about it. So if you added Nick Chubb, Myles Garrett, Joe Bitonio, Wyatt Teller, let's bring back Bernie, let's bring back Joe Thomas. You get every former Browns player to come in and say, we want this to stay downtown. Jimmy's going to say, you front the other half of the bill for the dome, and then we'll keep it downtown. And if that doesn't happen, they are moving to Brook Park. Frankly, it sucks that that's the reality.
Did he buy the land already?
That's going to happen. And they could use
so
it
the
for,
land is technically his.
Well, I don't think he hasn't closed on it.
Okay.
I don't think it's that far down the road, but I think they're gonna buy that land and they'll turn it into something else. If it's not a stadium, they'll do something else. They'll still do retail and mixed use and shopping and everything else.
Okay.
It's just not going to have a stadium on it. Again, they got to figure out the funding component of this. That's a lot
And it's
of
got to happen
public
fast.
dollars.
Am I crazy for thinking it has to happen not tomorrow, but
I keep
sooner than
saying
later?
that. I keep saying certainly by the end of the year. If they're going to go before the public, and they don't necessarily have to, but if they have a ballot measure, I think they have to have it on this November ballot.
Do you think what happened in Kansas City will spook the Haslams?
Yes.
In this election?
Spook?
And for anyone who doesn't
They're
know,
watching.
by the way,
They're watching.
for anyone who doesn't know, Kansas City had a vote to help fund a new Royal Stadium and a new Chiefs Stadium, and the public voted it down with the overall sentiment being, we're not giving you our tax dollars to help you build billionaire suites for your billionaire friends. That was essentially what the vote was.
And both of those facilities are way older than Brown Stadium.
Is it because everybody talks about the Brown stadium being very cheaply built? Do you think Kansas City's worse?
Were you there for that? Were you out there for that? I've only been there one time.
I've only been to Kansas City twice.
Did you ever play there?
I played there twice. I told you my first NFL game was at Kansas City.
They've renovated it. I mean,
So that was in 16. 16 was when I was there.
I mean, you can certainly tell the difference when you walk into Atlanta, the Mercedes-Benz.
See, I
Atlanta.
never got to go there, man.
When you walk into Atlanta, SoFi, I haven't been to Vegas, but it's in that category. Minnesota,
I was at Minnesota. Minnesota's nice.
phenomenal.
Yeah, Minnesota's nice.
You walk into those stadiums, compared to everything else, there is no comparison.
Yeah.
And Kansas City certainly falls into the everything else category. And I've never been to Royal Stadium. I've never been there. They're right across the street from each
Kaufman,
other.
is it?
But
That
I'm
was
sorry.
Kaufman.
Yeah, Kauffman Stadium. I never covered a game there.
Well, I just want to know. I need to know what the renovation, the $1 billion renovation, what is it doing? Like,
If they were
Down-
renovating
if
the
they
current
stay
stadium,
downtown,
I
what
mean,
is
no
the-
one would know better than Jason.
He said he didn't dig in on that. yet.
Yeah, I've spent more time trying to get to the bottom of the dome thing rather than I think that they would tear it down to the studs. Like they would tear the current stadium down and almost rebuild it on the current land and basically redo the whole thing.
So
But it's
they-
still going to be open air. It's not going to be a dome.
So they're gonna have to play somewhere else for like 2 seasons.
Yeah, I don't know. I need to look into that. I don't know.
I'm
and
giving
I don't even
them-
know if they've
I'm
got
giving
that
them
far.
homework.
Yeah, right. Every time I do something with you make me do work.
Hey, the people want to know. People want to know these answers.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they know because I think right now everyone's focused on how do they do the dome.
Well, we had Zach in here yesterday, your colleague, Zach Jackson with The Athletic, and he said in his opinion, if it was up to the Haslams, they would build a dome downtown.
100%.
Oh,
Downtown?
Downtown?
Am I remembering what he said correctly?
Off the top of my head, I believe so, yes.
Yeah, he said if it was up to them, they'd build a dome downtown.
So why can't they?
Money.
So it would cost more money to build the dome downtown?
I hope I'm not misquoting Zach on that.
Do you
I was
think it
sitting right
costs
next
more
to him in that
money
chair. I thought
to
that's
build
what
a
he said.
dome downtown in that location?
Well, you can't build it. I mean, if you try and build a dome on that location, that's going to be multiple years that you're because you got to knock the whole thing down.
Yeah, you gotta knock the
and
whole thing
rebuild.
down.
So
Well, but
that's-
they ripping it down to the
that's-
studs.
Well, but I think that there's and the
Different
Guardians
foundations for that.
the Guardians is a bad example, but the Guardians are playing through their renovations. Like, literally they start the day after the season ends. They work as long as they can, and then with the Browns, it would actually be better because you can work through the spring and summer months, whereas baseball, you're trying to work through the winter months. So you just do it in phases.
Okay.
But there may be a year where you can't. I don't know. Like I'm totally speculating on this because I just don't know. But you can certainly play through renovations while you're doing them, if depending on how significant the renovations are. I'm surprised to hear Zach say that, only because I think that they like the Brook Park plan is what they want. That's what they want. They want land. They want land, and they want the opportunity to print money out there, which is what they will do. And that's why if the public pushes back on it, I get it. You know, like I've said before, I think he should pay for the whole thing himself.
Yeah.
That doesn't please
Well,
many people in Berea every time I say that.
When that pilot number came out, it's gonna be
13.6
it's gonna be
mil.
hard to get
Yeah.
people to knowing that he got that.
And
it's hard to donate towards that.
And Buffalo got a ton of public money, and
And
they're
they
not even
still
building.
didn't make a
and they're
dome.
still not doing a dome. But the trend very much has become, if you want it, you pay for it. There's been less and less public funds put into these things. In Atlanta, Arthur Blank was on the hook for all the overruns, and there were a lot of overruns. And the city's like, you want it, you pay for it.